Welcome back to In His Mind. This is spur of the moment here. I'm trying not to mess up too badly while I'm driving and talking, expressing my thoughts and ideas on this. So this is something that... There are two videos. One I have watched, the other one I have not watched. And one of them introduced the idea that demons are not binary. They are neither male nor female. This is actually supported in the Bible in a couple different verses. Part of the physiology, the biology, the makeup of a human is having certain body parts. They do not talk much about demons, but they do talk quite a bit about angels. How they have extra wings, extra eyes, stuff like that. I say that respectfully, but hear me out. Reproduction is for having babies. We know that. Masculinity and femininity are something that is somehow tied to all this beyond just simply reproduction. Some of it will probably remain hidden until end of time, until we're called back, until we get to heaven. I think some of that is necessary and needed. So we stick to the basics and we go a little bit above and beyond with personal experiences, revelations, dreams, etc. A lot of this can be from God, but a lot of it can also lead us down different paths too. So, as far as the video, and Pastor Driscoll is a very interesting character. I have to say I like a lot of what he says, even though I don't entirely agree with all of it. It's very solid, very enjoyable. But demons being non-binary does make a lot of sense, pushing a lot of things. Also, it makes sense why part of me being attacked when I was a kid was with my masculinity, about like why I hated everything about masculinity. The other video that I have yet to see is it was actually that video. It was that video on demons are not binary. But the one that I had watched was on the Jezebel Spirit and something else that is suddenly blanking my mind. I'll have to link both of those down below. Demons infiltrating the church, maybe? Anyway, I'll link them down below. I'm moving on here. So... What if masculinity and femininity were not tied to actually the male or female body? What if they're housed in conjunction in the way that God is trying to have a harmonious relationship to set as the standard? Because when you look at characteristics and traits and actions, attributes, everything that is attached to it, men and women are capable of both, but one sex scores higher in certain areas than the other sex. So, in the end, things do line up fairly well. I'm going to need to think more about this, but I guess the point of this particular video here, since it's just impromptu, it's just, just because, like, spontaneous, is because my struggle with being a Christian is more than just simply, oh, how do I become the best Christian possible? It's a whole bunch of other factors. What do I do about that entity that was in my life for 13 years? What do I do about my masculinity? How do I go about reclaiming it? Like, there are steps to take as far as this goes. There's other aspects too when it comes down to, like, how do you navigate in this world to go get yourself a relationship? I'm single. I would like to have a relationship. Obviously, I would like to avoid a whole bunch of issues and problems that seem to be plaguing today's world with divorce and being stuck in a loveless, sexless marriage. Granted, I mean, sometimes it's better to be single than to be with the wrong person, for sure. With that being said, when I was a kid, I had dreams of just simply being in a relationship like my parents, as far as like having an awesome wife, awesome kids, and a career that I loved having, and a home. I don't have all that. I have the home, and I have 2 pets. and I have what is turning into be a decent career. I'm not crazy about it. Private security has taught me a lot. I'm not crazy about it, but there's definitely a lot to be thankful for with that. And I don't just simply sit around. I try to be proactive to the point where I accidentally caused a couple of issues, but it's mostly because of misunderstanding. According to some others, I have Asperger's syndrome. Asperger's, whatever, however you say it. So, being able to not having filters, not struggling to have decent boundaries in places, these are pros and cons in different scenarios. So most Christians don't seem to have issues like that with the social part, with that having occurred more naturally in their younger years. But for me, like, I'm 37, and there are some things that I've learned in the past 5 years that I've never learned growing up. I don't blame my parents, because I was a handful when I was growing up, and being adopted, you come with a whole bunch of other issues because of, like, problems and issues, abuse, the lack of love, care, decent people when you were growing up. Like, there's a lot that's just simply missing. Now, being called a whole bunch of names and having a whole bunch of crap piled on me emotionally, mentally, is part of the process too, that really just made me put things in the corner back in 2011 and just like shut the door, like throw it all in a closet, shut the door. Things got to a point where I just couldn't process things, and I was like, look, I'll just have to come back to this later. I can't deal with it. And this isn't like something like a bill that you have to settle right here or there. This is emotional stuff. It's not physical. It's not visible. And to a point, you work on what you can for a couple of different reasons. But sometimes there's not really much of a expiration date. There's not really like a due date where you have to get this done, get this stuff done or knocked out, or just simply taken care of. Sometimes these issues are going to be your thorn, my thorn a thorn in my side, just as some of these will be a thorn in your side. That being said, finding ways to overcome some of this stuff and to let go, to accept, to forgive, to move beyond, to accept and move beyond, that's something from Warframe, which was pretty useful if you ask me. Bringing stuff to God is something that is stated in the Bible, but accepting and moving on is something that is indirectly referenced in the Bible as well, where God explains how, through different God and Jesus explain through different stories and parables, like, allow the weeds to grow up with the plants, and then at harvesting time, you pull the weeds away from the plants, so you don't, you do so you don't damage the plants, when they're just starting to grow up. There's different things that show how this matters, because sometimes things will get stuck in your mind and you have to find a way, you have to find a way forward or around it somehow. It's not necessarily a problem to be solved so much as it is a landmark, a hole, like an absence, a wall that you should get around. Sometimes these will have different shapes and forms depending upon how they impact you. And so with masculinity, a lot of garbage and a lot of the worst was associated. I came to associate with masculinity just being wrong, evil, the worst thing in the world. And I was like, dude, I don't want anything to do with this. I just did a 180 and I just ran away. And that set me down a very interesting path that was not intentional at all. But unlike many of the other people who are trans or who had considered going to be trans, I never hated myself like that. I never felt like I was out of not in the right body, and that I was somehow, you know, the right body laid for me somewhere else. So, a lot of things that I've come to learn and accept and understand over time is that they're not, that just now clicked with that video that I just saw the headlines of, you know, demons are non-binary. I may need to divorce some things from the male and female body, you know, masculinity from the male body, femininity from the female body. Mostly just so I can find ways to move on in my own life, so to speak. I think, biblically speaking, a lot of these good characteristics and qualities grow up over time, as long as you are grounded in the Word, grounded in, I would love to say grounded in fellowship, but I can't. That's important, but it's not like, it's not something that could actually replace scriptures. Scriptures are supposed to be number one, but fellowship is important. The second most important thing would be reaching out to God, chasing after God, showing that, you know, He is important to you, and for you to pursue Him. This is not exactly a one-sided relationship when it comes down to pursuing God, but it may appear to be that way because there are times where you have to wait. There are times where God says no, and there are times where things don't seem to be happening. Not exactly a waiting period, just like, think of it as processing. Waiting versus processing. Things are in the works, you just can't see them. And believe me, there's a lot we can't see. If you have communication with other people, you can hear that things are in the works and going on. But we're not exactly going to be in the right communication with a lot of people for sure, so that's just not going to be completely visible there, you know? So as my struggle with masculinity happened back in, starting around 2007, 2008, a lot of rejection happened. I think in that process with me rejecting, I ended up pushing away a lot of good qualities as well, a lot of good characteristics and qualities. And relearning those have taken time. I think I will always be a little fuzzy on some of the details. But it's nice to know that I'm not exactly alone and that I'm not, like, lost. I know some people have said, like, yeah, you're a Christian. You're not a Christian because you're lost. And I'm like, no, not the case. Here's the thing. I may not know where I'm going, but I'm not lost. I'm not clueless. It's more like I'm off mark, or God forbid, I'm taking a detour. There's another way to say it, too. Drifting around, I think. Something like that. But yeah, lost is not something I would be using myself. But I have seen it. We all know what it's like. And this is going to overheat, isn't it? Yeah, it's going to overheat. I'm not going to be talking too much more about this anyway. This is a good topic, but this is not going to apply to a lot of the people, and I'm trying to keep this around 10 minutes anyway. I don't think there's anything else that's more important. A lot of it's personal. A lot of it's just simply like, I hate this. How do I get around it? How do I fix this? And in the process, learning to love myself for who I am and coming to grips with certain things, like I have limits. I have to like the good and the bad with me. I can't just simply shove things in the corner, because unlike most other Christians and other people in general, I cannot stand going through life not knowing who I am, what I'm capable of. And second, I can't go through life not trying, not doing something, doing my best, pursuing. Even if I'm going the wrong direction, I'm going to gain up some experience in that. And hopefully it'll apply in the right direction when I find out what the right direction is. So yeah, in a sense, this channel is so much, and it is for fun. I enjoy doing this, and I hope I can bless other people in the process of all this. Until next time.